Hi guys, so this is our second topic of the unit that we're going to be talking about, and it's called symbiosis or symbiotic relationships. Okay, so we're going to talk about these terms and what they mean. So I don't believe this part may be on your notes, but just double check if there's a spot for you to write the definition for symbiosis. However, if there's not a spot, I suggest you write it somewhere. It's super important. Symbiosis is the living together of two different organisms. Organisms are pretty much anything living on Earth, right? So just think about the different ways that organisms interact with each other. So there's always going to be two that we're talking about at a time. I mean, certainly there could be more, but in the scenarios for the STAR test, we're going to be talking about the relationship between two different organisms. So we have a live plant or a live flower and a live hummingbird. Okay, so the hummingbird feeds off of the plant and the plant provides nectar for the hummingbird. Okay, and so same thing here, we have a snake interacting with a gazelle, I believe. And so this is where the snake is trying to eat the large animal for nutrition or for food. Okay, and so it may not be a good interaction, but they're interacting. Okay, and then in this scenario, you have heartworms infecting the heart of an organism, typically a dog or something like that. So the heartworm is living inside of the heart and feeding off of it and eventually killing the heart. But for the meantime, dogs that have heartworms, it can be treated, but they're kind of living inside of their hearts, and they can kind of just feed off the dog without necessarily killing it. Eventually it will. Okay, so here is going to be predation. Please make sure that you're following along with your notes. You're going to write down, predation should already be there for you, and then you're going to write down one organism benefits and one organism is killed. And then you're going to draw in your faces here. Okay, so in this scenario, when we talk about the symbiotic relationship, predation, we're talking about predator and prey. So that means the capturing of a prey as a means of maintaining life. So this would be an example of two animals or two organisms interacting in a predation type of relationship. Okay, so you have one seal that's going to be eaten by the big shark. So let's think about these faces. This kind of helps us to remember what each one of the symbiotic relationships are. So we have two faces because there's two different organisms. The first face, I'm guessing, would be the shark. He would be happy because he's getting food, right? So he's actually benefiting from this relationship. He's going to get nourishment and food from this relationship. But the other organism is not benefiting. He's being killed, right? So he's going to die in this relationship. So, unless he escapes, but that's not the type of relationship. So, in this type of relationship, predation, one benefits and the other one is killed. Okay? So that's just your typical predator-prey symbiotic relationship. Okay, the next one is called parasitism. Parasitism is where the relationship supports the survival of only one species, but not the other, right? So you're actually, it's supporting the lifestyle of another one, or the survival of the other one. So because the parasite needs the host to remain alive, it's typically advantageous. So it's an advantage for the parasite to not kill its host. So in this relationship, what I would write is you could write something like this, but I think it would be important to say that one benefits and the other does not benefit, right? The other one is harmed. So in this scenario, I would actually put another text box here. Let me see if I can add that to it. Insert text box. So this is actually what I would put in my notes. One organism benefits. One organism is harmed. Okay, so in this scenario, there's several different examples, but you have a dog and you have some fleas. So fleas can typically live on a dog, suck the blood from a dog, but it doesn't necessarily kill the dog. Okay, so that's a type of relationship that they have. Now, the fleas don't want to kill the dog because if they did, they wouldn't have a blood supply or they wouldn't have a food supply. So if they drank too much blood, that would kill their host, right? That would kill them. So in this scenario, I guess the fleas would be the one that benefits here, and the dog would be the one that is harmed because he's getting his blood taken away. It's very itchy and irritating to have these bugs on his skin, and so that's never a good situation. Let me see if I can, there we go. All right, so parasitism is where you have parasites living on you. I mean, they even say that pregnant women having a baby, it's like a parasitism because the baby's kind of feeding and taking away your food source, but it doesn't want to kill the mother because that's its life support, right? So same thing with the heartworms inside of the dog's heart. The heartworms don't necessarily want to kill the dog because if it kills the dog, it's not going to have any more blood to eat, and the worms will most likely die as well. So parasitism, again, is where one benefits and the other one is harmed, but not killed, just harmed. Okay, this one I feel like is the hardest one to remember. I don't know why, but every year this one is the hardest one to remember. It's called commensalism. Okay, so it's a relationship between two species where one species benefits and the second is unaffected. So this is what you would write in your notes part there. One benefits, one organism benefits, and the other is unaffected. So an example of this would be this bird that walks alongside. I know it's standing on top of the cow, but they don't always do that. But the bird walks alongside the cow. So once the cow starts grazing for grass and walking around the grass, these little bugs pop out of the grass. So the bird eats the bugs out of the grass because the cow kind of shuffled them through the grass. Okay, but the bird is getting food, so he would be the happy one. The bird is happy because as the cow moves, bugs move, and he can eat the bugs. Okay, but the cow is unaffected. The bird's not helping the cow. The bugs aren't hurting the cow. So no one's really helping the cow or hurting the cow. So in this situation, the cow is unaffected. He's just kind of meh. He's not happy. He's not sad, right? He's unaffected. But the bird is actually getting food from their relationship. I'll show you guys some more examples of this one in a little bit. Okay, mutualism. When you say you're in a mutualistic relationship, like if you're thinking about your relationship with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, if you are both benefiting from the relationship, if you're both happy, that's a mutualistic relationship. Okay, so mutualism is any relationship between two species of organisms that benefit or that both benefit. So in this scenario, you would have two organisms that both get something from the relationship. So in this scenario, it may look like the crocodile's eating the bird, but that's not what's happening. The bird is cleaning the crocodile's teeth. So the crocodile is actually getting his teeth cleaned, which he's happy for that. And the bird is actually getting food from cleaning his teeth. So he's getting food and he's getting his teeth cleaned. So they both win in that situation. Now in this situation, the squirrel and the nut. So whenever the squirrel is eating the seeds from the tree, the squirrels kind of poop out those seeds in different places, and it helps to disperse the seeds to different locations so that the trees can grow in different locations. And the squirrel gets food. So they both benefit, the tree and the squirrel in that scenario. Same thing here. We've kind of talked about the birds, we've kind of talked about the bees and the flowers. So when the bee eats the nectar from the plant, from the flower, these little grains of pollen stick to the hairs of the bee. And so when the bee flies to different flowers, it then helps the plant pollinate. So the bee is getting food and the flower is being pollinated in a way that it wouldn't be able to without the bee. Okay, so again, they are both benefiting from that relationship. All right, last few, competition. Competition is where two organisms are fighting between, or they're competing between the same resources. So if you're talking about plants, they could be fighting for light. One tree can grow a little bit taller and shade the other, and then the other tree will grow a little bit taller and shade the other. So plants can fight for light or space or water or food. Like these animals might be fighting for a girl or a mate, right? So, or they could be fighting over food here. So the competition, so you can, the way you can draw in your faces is you can draw two people fighting, or you can draw two mad faces, but regardless, they're fighting over something, they're competing over something. So in this scenario, both organisms, I usually say, are mad, right? Both organisms are angry or competing. Okay, so here's just a recap of the different types. So you can kind of fill in your notes based off of these as well, if you didn't fill in enough notes. But predation, one benefits, so one is happy, one gets something, and the other one gets eaten, so he gets killed. Parasitism is where like a parasite lives on your skin, like a mosquito could be a parasite to us. So the mosquito is benefiting or getting blood, and we are getting hurt or affected by the mosquito, and that's called parasitism. Mutualism is where they both organisms benefit from the relationship. And commensalism is where one benefits, but the other one really doesn't care if he's there. It's not helping him or hurting him. And then the last one is competition. They're competing for resources, mates, territory, light, food, all kinds of things. Okay, here's just another little chart. Make sure you're pausing and evaluating these things yourself, making sure that you're taking it in and understanding it. But this is just a way to say, you know, in this scenario, you have all of organism 1 that usually benefits, except for competition. But in predation, they have one that benefits, parasitism. So really, you just kind of have to remember what organism 2 does in that relationship, right? But usually, in almost all of them, one of them benefits. But in predation, one's killed. Parasitism, one's harmed, but it's still alive. Mutualism, they both benefit, or the other one is benefited, and the other one in commensalism is not affected. Just a different way to look at it. Okay, so I'm going to go over just some practice cards with you and see what you guys can, you know, certainly pause it before I give the answer to make sure that you understand it. Okay, so if we have a flea that's living on top of a dog or in the skin of a dog, what type of relationship would that be? So think what a flea does, right? It sucks the blood from the dog. So what type of relationship would that be? Parasitism, commensalism, mutualism, predation, or competition? Go ahead and pause at this point and make sure that you find the answer out on your own. Okay, so in this scenario, it would be parasitism, right? It's like a parasite. The flea doesn't want to kill the dog, but the flea's going to get blood from the dog and harm him.